So last year, the US military created a weapon to surpass Metal Gear. Well, not quite, but what they did do is adopt a new combat rifle, the SIG MCX Spear, aka, for the military designation, the XM7. The real question though is, hot or not? Let's go find out. Oh yeah, gotta love some 308. What is up, you sexy YouTube mother lovers? Today we are taking a look at the SIG MCX Spear, aka the military's new rifle under the name the XM7. It was originally the XM5, destined to be the M5, but now they switched it to the XM7. But this is the rifle the military is planning on replacing the M4 with, at least that's, we're on the street right now. You know how militaries work. It's the current plan until suddenly it isn't. But regardless of whether or not it actually accomplishes widespread adoption, this is the rifle that did win the NGSW contract, aka the next generation squad weapons. So is this and a dope looking light machine gun that I want to play with eventually. So first off, before we get started, what is my relationship with SIG? I don't really have necessarily a relationship with SIG. They were nice enough to send out this one for me, and I commend them for that. I told them that this was going to be my honest thoughts, and I'm going to basically tell everybody what I think about this gun. Good, bad, awful, or indifferent. And they fucking sent me one anyway, so kudos to them for that. The other thing is that this is not in the new military caliber, which is, I believe it's like a 6.8 round. I think they're calling it on the civilian side, 277 Fury. This one is chambered in 308 Winchester 7.62x51, and it takes, typical AR-10 magazines. This is an SPR. I think this is a 13.5-inch barrel with our suppressor, of course, on the end. We'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, this basically is the military XM7. So the real question everybody's asking is it kind of poopy? No matter what, it can't be a worse step backwards than the AK-12. Relax, pal. You're only there because you're rare and you look cool. So to give you a rough outline of the video, real quick, I'm gonna go over manual of arms, just the basic function of the gun. We've got some more range stuff that we'll be clipping in throughout the video. Then I'll be doing disassembly and showing kind of how the inner guts of the gun actually work. And then at the end, we're going to be talking about my actual thoughts on it. What do I like about the gun? What do I not like about the gun? And then overall, guess what I think about it. This is the closest thing I've done in a while to a review, because I really don't like to do reviews. I like to do historic weapons and show off kind of cool stuff that I've acquired in the collection just for videos and stuff. Reviews always seem kind of shilly to me, so I try to stay away from them. This is a cool opportunity, and I thought you guys would really enjoy taking a look into, I guess, the military's potential new rifle. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started in the manual of arms. So we have our magazine release here that I can go ahead and use to make the gun clear. Just to show you, it can be done from both sides. So we've got off to a great start. So now we can clear the weapon. So we can grab our charging handle there, show clear. We have two charging handles on this gun. We have our rear charging handle, but we also have this folding left side charging handle. It's actually pretty nifty. Like this a lot more than this, but we'll get into that later. I'll try my best to keep snarky remarks to a minimum, and I will try to save my thoughts till the end of the video. I'll put the magazine back in for a minute so I can show the bolt release. We've got the typical AR-15 style bolt release here, so that sends the bolt home. But also, on the right side, just above the trigger, we have one as well, which is actually kind of neat. Safety is our typical AR-15 selector. It is ambi, so it is on both sides. So there is no typical buffer buffer setup like a typical AR-15. So we do have the ability to fold the stock. So you hit this little button, top here, pull up, and your stock folds nicely to the side, and you just fold it back out if you need it. We also have a suppressor here. You can see, I don't know, Delance, if you feel like zooming in there, we have lock and unlock positions. So if I slide this over, I've unlocked the can. So if I'm locked, obviously I can't remove it. If I slide it off into the unlock position, now I can unthread the suppressor. As you can see, she's a little bit of a dirty girl. To go along with the suppressor, we also have our gas positions here. So you can see this side says suppressed, and then if I flip it over here, this side says normal. So if I'm running it without the suppressor, I flip it over to normal. Now, this rifle did come across to me as like slightly overgassed, so I did try running it on the suppressed setting without the suppressor, and that does not work. Just slightly too little gas to be able to pick up the next round, which that's not SIG's fault. I'm not going to get angry because I ran it in the suppressed setting without a suppressor and like, why don't my gun work? After all, I am not terminally online. So grab our can back on and we can just thread that back into place and relock it, and we are good to go. Congratulations, you now know how to use the military's new combat rifle. And remember kids, knowing is half the battle. ADD break. So as we know, 308 will penetrate a White Claw. Science. But just to demonstrate, I guess, why the military is wanting to move to a more powerful round over 5.56, we're going to be lining up a few White Claws to kind of demonstrate just how much energy a battle rifle cartridge has. Now I know it's not a 1-to-1 with the 277, but 308 still nothing to sneeze at. Protecting America and her interests in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, that'll do it. So several of these were, completely peeled open, but several were just straight up decapitated, which is kind of crazy. Pretty good demonstration though of the amount of energy that a projectile can still have even after it's hit its target, hence concepts like overpenetration and such. Not that a lot of you guys have ever had to worry about overpenetration. Anyway, so now let's break down how this actually functions. So while it may feel like a standard AR-10, there's quite a few things that are different. For one, the gas system is different than a typical AR-15. We actually have a short stroke operating system. And Delance, if you could zoom in here through the handguard vents, you can actually see a bit of where the piston hits. So obviously there's a short piston captured within the gas block, and there is a longer rod that runs directly to the bolt carrier. And as previously mentioned, we don't have a buffer tube assembly, so let's go ahead and open this thing up and show you what we do have. While I'm doing this, I do want to make sure that I give a little bit of love to the main channel sponsor, which is SDI, or the Sonoran Desert Institute, because if you are interested in gun design and gunsmithing stuff like I am, I highly recommend checking them out. Great place to get your start in gunsmithing, so I will leave the links in the description and the pinned comment as always. So I just popped this rear pin here, just like an AR. This is just gonna hinge open like so. I'll go ahead and actually remove the magazine. So we have our upper and lower now, but as previously stated, no buffer tube, no buffer spring, none of that. Instead, we have a recoil spring that is captured within the upper itself. So let's go ahead and take that apart. The lower, there's really nothing to show you guys that's that crazy. It's a typical, AR-15 style hammer fire control group. Now with the upper, we are going to grab this. That was a little violent. It's our recoil spring assembly. It's just a long ass spring there, and quite dirty as it turns out. Now that that's out, we can go ahead and grab our charging handle here and pull out our bolt. So there we go. So here we have our, I'm always tempted to call this long stroke gas piston, but it's not a long stroke gas piston. Things like the AK are our long stroke gas piston, which basically means that the piston attached to the bolt carrier goes all the way to the gas block, and the gas directly from the gas block hits the front of the bolt carrier. That's what actuates it. Whereas short stroke, even if it's a very short stroke, we'll have a intermediary piston that comes out just a little bit from the gas block and smacks this, which in then turn hits this and unlocks the bolt and allows the weapon to cycle. But we're gonna go ahead and remove our piston here, and we just have our bolt. A lot of skeletonizing in the carrier here, which is kind of interesting. Got our cam groove here, which is very much, you know, it's AR. And we have our chunky bolt face because we are firing the obviously heftier round like 277 or 308. We also have dual ejectors there instead of the typical one ejector on the AR. Sometimes bigger guns will use 2 ejector pins instead of just 1, basically to make sure that ejection is not a suggestion. If you really want to rip it down, you can take this pin out and you can completely separate the lower from the upper. It's where you can get to a lot of other design decisions that I find pretty interesting. Like, for example, the feed ramp here. I'm trying to figure out the best way to show you this. The feed ramp is a separate steel piece, I believe, and it's looks to be bolted in from the bottom. So that's a little different. Not sure if that's because it's a wear part or exactly what is going on there. But speaking of wear parts, we also have our brass deflector in the rear, which is also a removable, replaceable piece, which is interesting. Another interesting thing I wanted to point out too is that it seems as though the piston, the short stroke piston up front, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but in person you can clearly see that it's hitting off center, which I guess it really doesn't matter, but I thought it was worth pointing out. So reassemble, we take our bolt carrier here, put our piston back in, stick it into the gun, throw that in like so. There we go. Now that our bolt's in there, we're going to try to fish this spring back into that little hole in the rear of the bolt. There we go. You kind of have to take this tab and push it up under in this little groove, and then it fits back in its little spot there. And just to show you how self-contained this is, I'm going to be using the side charging handle here. It doesn't need the use of a buffer tube like a standard AR-15. So now we're going to stick our lower back on, push that in, and we are ready to get back to killing. Well, maybe after I wash my fucking hands. Cancer, it's finger licking good.
A few moments later.
Now you might have noticed for funsies through, you know, portions of this video, I've been running the PK6 from, you know, Zenit Co, but also, you know, from Tarkov. Little foregrip that I've just been sticking on the front of the gun here just for a little bit extra recoil control. It fits the hand pretty well. The way I've been easily taking this on and off the M-lock here on the bottom is with this little Sylvan Arms adapter. So I just push these tabs in and just kind of drop the foregrip on the front and run that. And then when I want to take it off to, you know, take a thumbnail or something, not, you know, mess up the aesthetic of what you think of with the XM7, I just pinch these and take it right on off. It's kind of a neat little thing. I've been kind of exploring using this for, you know, flashlights and stuff like that on different guns of mine that have M-lock, that I don't want to have to go through the hassle of, you know, constantly grabbing, you know, an Allen key or hex head and just taking it on and off when I want to switch it between guns. Just have a little quick detach thing. Sylvan also does it in the long rail configuration and for like QD rails and sling mounts and shit like that. They also make stuff like AR folding stock adapters and actually a couple cans that they sent us over that we've been messing around with. Suppressed 22s in the backyard. Very fun. The guys at Sylvan are actually old school friends of mine from the Carolinas, so we wanted to give them just a little bit of love. And they actually wanted to give you a little bit of love too. Not sexually. I mean, I don't know, you could ask. But if you want to check out their website, they're actually offering 25% off if you use the code Brandon. Tell them I said hi. So now let's get to the question you guys at home have probably been wondering. Do I like the XM7? So to tackle this question, we're actually going to break it down into pros and cons. Things that I like about it, things that I don't. But I feel nice today. So let's start with the pros. So let me start from the back of the gun and then move forward. Folding stock, actually pretty easy to operate. So just a little button press and flip it over to fold it out. Just grab it and push it out. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's actually pretty cool. And if you don't like it, you can always replace it because it's just got a pick rail back here. So if you wanted any other kind of stock that can take 1913 rail, you just throw it on. Trigger itself, not bad. Not a competition trigger, but it's pretty nice. This little right side bolt release here, kind of a fan. Feels a little flimsy, but I like the placement and I think it's kind of clever. It's like a bad lever, but it keeps your finger out of your trigger guard while you're slamming your bolt home, which I like. The left side charging handle, the fold out here, a little weird to have to get your finger in there and pull it back because it is locked when it is in the folded position. So you actually do have to pull this all the way out and then use it to charge the gun. But I do like that left side charging, especially since the regular charging handle is so bad. I will get to that later. We're being positive right now. Handguard here offers a lot of space to mount whatever shit you want. If you're wanting to run like a foregrip, a laser, a light, a pack, anything, you can do it. I like how easy the gas is. It's literally just 2 settings there, no reason to complicate it. And when it gets hot, you can use the nose of a round to, work your gas settings for you. The suppressor, it suppresses. Honestly, it's not bad. It's not even close to hearing safe, but it's also an SBR 308, so wasn't really expecting it to be. Did shoot it without ears once. But even with the can, I would recommend Ear Pro. Even as deaf as I am, it was still a little loud. It's kind of crazy as the new DMLS kind of can. DMLS, like the direct metal laser center, seems to be like the new craze in suppressors now. You get some interesting geometry on the inside of these things. So is it a bad can? Nah. But it's certainly not gonna break any records and you're not gonna be impressing anybody. Other than that, aesthetically, I'm kind of a sucker for FDE, especially like the 50 Shades of FDE. In my opinion, it's a pretty sweet looking gun. Recoil impulse, not bad. Like I said earlier, I don't know why it feels like slightly overgassed, but it's not terrible. But as heavy as this gun is, it really shouldn't be bad. Oh, I did want to mention this too. Also, running it suppressed, it's not that gassy. At no point was I being gassed out by the suppressor, even when I was running it pretty fast. So being a suppressed 308 SBR, it handles the gas blowback pretty well in my opinion. Also worth pointing out, it was very reliable. We only have a couple hundred rounds through this, so this is not the be-all, end-all. I know that's really not a lot to be talking about reliability. I know Garantham's working on like a few thousand round test of this thing right now, so I would actually be very curious to see his findings on that. So keep an eye out on Garantham's channel whenever that ends up coming out. But yeah, literally the only failure we ever had on this is the time I tried to run it without the can on the suppress setting just to see if that would help the gassing a little bit, but obviously that's not the gun's fault. So yeah, that is what I like about this gun. And I did want to throw this out there if you were thinking about picking up any of the SIG products, like I think the SIG LTs, which is basically just this and 5.56, any of their handguns and stuff like that, I would recommend checking out the Shoot SIG program. It's like $50 a year, allows you to shoot matches for like Shoot SIG, has their own like thing. And the biggest thing is they allow you to buy 1 SIG gun per year at a pretty significant discount. Like buying the membership pretty much pays for itself as soon as you buy a gun. Potentially a lot more. I'll keep it short, but there's a bunch of other stuff I'd check out. I think it's shootsig.com. I think they're even giving away one of these at some point. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I was told. That's my one little plug, is a little bit of appreciation for SIG for sending me out an expensive gun. So on that note, time for the cons. This is what I do not like about this rifle. Welcome to the proverbial shit list. So first off, right off the bat, not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's one of my bigger gripes with the gun. It's fucking heavy, dude. Like just holding this out with the can on it. And I know it's got the can, but this is a fucking SBR. It's a 13.5-inch barrel. It's kind of heavy. I was running up a hill with this motherfucker earlier. I wish we got it on camera because I was, my cardio's not, it's not fantastic, but I was winded by the time I got to the top. This thing's just it's a heavy fucking thing to run up a cliffside with. Unloaded, it comes in at 8.9 pounds. For reference, that is 1 full pound or 13% heavier than a full-size SCAR 17S, which is also a semi-automatic 308 with 20-round magazines. So she's chunky, she's thick, 3 Cs, possibly a Q. Another thing, and this kind of dovetails into that, the stock is not great. It's just a very skeletonized stock for the size of the gun it's attached to. And it's really like it wants to slip up and over my shoulder for some reason. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not used to stocks like this. It's literally even got like a little slant there for that. But I could be wrong on this, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they went with the smallest Magpul stock possible. They ship with the smallest Magpul stock possible so that they don't have to get to that dreaded 9-pound mark. So instead of just adding a tiny bit more weight and having a better stock on it, that would put them at 9 pounds. They stick with the skeletonized one. Another thing I talked about when I said things I like about the gun, I talked about the left side charging handle. I'm really fucking glad it has this, because this charging handle in the back is borderline fucking unusable. It feels really flimsy, like I feel like I'm gonna fucking break it. And it's stiff. It is so fucking stiff. How stiff is it, Brandon? Joe Biden in a room full of school kids. All right, that was a little fucked up, but you get the point. Not supposed to be that bad. This is my Radiant. Yes, I do own some ARs. I don't mind the ARs. Just that my heart belongs to the AK, and AR guys are easy to joke about. But this, very, very smooth charging handle. Like one finger. Very, very, very easy. Using the same pinky finger. It is like a Herculean feat to get that open. And I know what you're saying, Brandon, but that is a 5.56 versus a 308. That's not a fair comparison, and that's a good point. So here's my other semi-auto 308. Pinky finger. Very, very easy. Like this is not a problem at all. This is also without a buffer tube, so this is also a short stroke, self-contained system. So it's literally apples to apples here. Am I going to be a little biased because of how much I love the SCAR 17? Yeah, probably a little bit. I know a lot of people have mixed opinions on the SCARs, but honestly, if I had to go into the apocalypse with one gun and you told me that I couldn't choose an AK, SCAR 17. Side charging handle on that is a little better. Like I said, I'm glad this side charging handle is there. Another problem I ran into a lot, also that, sometimes you just drop the magazine and it automatically drops the bolt. It's a feature. Over-insertion. Over-insertion has been a big problem with me today, ladies. Basically what that means is if you put too much force on the magazine when you're inserting it, you will actually run up past the magazine release and get the weapon jammed by the loaded magazine, which means when you try to drop the bolt, you literally can't. You have to pull the magazine down to that, basically the mag catch, and then you can drop the bolt. It's become such a problem that it's basically smearing the magazine. All right, that was the over insertion. That is occasionally a problem. There you go. So I just had to pull this plastic mag out so I can actually, drop the bolt. For the record, I wasn't even trying to demonstrate that. I'm just filming for the montage right now, and it was just a perfect moment to demonstrate what I'm talking about later, I'm sure. There's also some other minor, like internal design things I'm not a super big fan of. The fact that spring is all loosey-goosey and you have to try to fit that back in a perfectly small hole. You know what I mean? Reassembly can get a little aggravating. Plus, I think there's tools needed for certain steps of the bolt disassembly, which is a little fucking weird. Not a big fan of that. Seriously, I can't really overstate how much that over insertion thing bothers me. It's like if you just put a little bit too much force when you're reinserting your magazine. Like, I don't know, just for example, if it's a new military rifle and you're on a deployment and you need to quickly reload your magazine because you're in a gunfight, the fact that the rifle can be jammed and unable to operate because you have inserted new ammunition into the rifle too forcefully seems like a problem. So, but you muscle memory that, pull it out. You can actually pull it past the mag catch, by the way, if you do that. So now you have to reinsert it. Hopefully you're not in too much of a hurry. And then now you're ready to get back to it. That seems like an issue. Hopefully that's something that they end up fixing in the future because, hey, over insertion stop, probably a good idea. Between that, the terrible charging handle, and the overall heft of this weapon that I don't think is justified by the package here. Yeah, this is certainly one of the rifles ever made. On a direct comparison, we have the SCAR 17. This is also a semi-automatic rifle in the same caliber, came out like 15 years earlier, a pound lighter, at about $2,000, $1,500 less expensive. So I think that pretty much sums up a lot of my issues with the SIG XM7, and I can't overstate enough how much that's just my experience with the rifle and my takeaway. It's not like I have a crazy amount of rounds through it, but still I think a lot of those problems that I just detailed are very legitimate issues. But the fact that SIG got the NGSW contract and a few other contracts such as the M17 military handgun contract, this has a lot of people wondering maybe there's some sort of corruption involved in some level in this process. Now the real question is, do I think so? Hello? Oh, the check cleared? Okay, awesome. Thanks. No, I do not. Ladies and gentlemen, the SIG MCX Spear, aka the XM7. I know I might have had a couple of takes about this rifle that could be considered a little bit spicy, but all things considered, still can't deny it's a hot looking gun. Now that we're done breaking it down, let me know what you think of the XM7 down in the comments. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you curious about it? Do you want one? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and I'm really curious to watch that Grantham video, because I want to see if we have similar findings. Anyhow, I appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end, and as always, I will see you sexy YouTube mother lovers in the next video. Thanks.
Fuel is my obsession to make the perfect weapon, like Rasputin's rise to the top. But I can stop.